Yo, it's me, it's VivKB, and welcome to another edition of the VivKB Podcast. When Thorpe, what happened to the audio last week, man?
It just seems like there's problem after problem, man.
We just can't do anything right, but once again, everyone, thank you so much for all of you who listened to the first episode. We promise you, we've got new mics, we've got new cameras, we are going to make this better for each and every one of you. And thankfully, we did get new stuff because we've got a really cool guest on today. One of my favourite personal trainers in Canberra, Mr. Jeremy Wilson. Jez, thanks for coming in, man.
Thanks for having me, man.
No worries at all. Well, look, guys, Jeremy and I have a very funny relationship. I call it a love-hate relationship. I love him, he hates me. We're going to go through all of that, as well as his amazing career so far in this industry. So, Jez, we'll get straight into it, dude. What was the first thing you did prior to getting into PT?
In terms of work?
In terms of work, man.
In terms of work, I was a roof plumber for about 4 years, in apprenticeship in that, completed and everything.
Right, because, so we talked about this a bit off camera. You left school early, was that correct?
Yeah, I ended up leaving school in year 9. School wasn't for me.
As an Indian, I wish I had that option, man. But it's definitely worked out for you, right?
Yeah, I guess you can say that.
Cool, so let's talk about this apprenticeship. How long did you do that for?
Roughly about 4 years. I used to have to travel to and from Sydney every 3 weeks for 3 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that was a bit taxing to do that on my own, but it was worth it in the end, so it was good.
Cool. So then after that, personal training became the thing that you decided to do. How did you get into PT?
From a gym I went to called Elite Physique. I met the owner there, and he basically started to train me and show me the ropes and all that kind of stuff. And from there, I pretty much asked him how can I become a PT. And he said, find the cheapest, nastiest PT course you can do, which I did. And I did all that through correspondence whilst also doing my apprenticeship. And then from there, pretty much remember asking for a job every day of the week that I was there. And he said no for probably about a year straight, and then I finally got a job.
Like all good stories, right, guys? I mean, just never give up. And the trainer you are referring to is Billy Joe Giampaolo, who's a very well-respected trainer in Canberra himself. So big shout out to Joe. Amazing dude. Let's talk about your personal training business right now. So what is the name of your business?
It's called JW Personal Training. It's literally just run out of the one gym, and I do online stuff as well.
Cool. And so you've done that. Did you basically start your business almost straight away, or did you work for them originally?
I actually didn't start off working for Bodybuilding at Elite. I worked for a gym called Evo Health Club in Barton, which was a bit of an eye-opener in terms of working for someone at a gym, and then going to work for someone like Billy, because it's chalk and cheese, as you probably know from hanging around Billy.
Totally. Well, try and define that for our audience a bit, if you would give some examples.
Well, think of having Hitler as your boss. That would have been like Evo. I still do love Jason, but. And then having your best mate as your boss.
Right. Oh, well, look, I mean, I was never around when Hitler was here, but I hear he didn't like my people very much, so I personally picked Billy as well. Well, dude, I don't really need to say this, but anyone that does have the video content or does follow you on social media at Just Wilson, you're a pretty big dude. Pretty jacked. I assume that meant you got into bodybuilding.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about that, man. When did bodybuilding become a thing that you wanted to do?
I always used to, when I was a kid, I always used to have the stereotypical story. I used to have the magazines and read the Arnold stuff and Ronnie Kong and Jay Cutler, all that kind of shit. And I basically just started training at home. And then from there, I remember I started to do PT with an actual trainer probably when I was like 13, 14 at a place called Flames Fitness.
Cool.
Which not many people know that. But, and then from there it sparked onto training at a gym in Mawson called Bodyworks, or used to be Bodyworks. And I remember after school we'd always go there to train, and my ultimate goal was to always be able to do the max pin loaded chest press and pec fly machine.
Did you ever achieve that goal?
Yes, I did.
Well, let's tick that off. So look, that started your training off, right? You were sort of bouncing around those sort of gyms,
Pretty much, yeah.
developing your physique. When did you first do your competition?
First competition was in 2008, not long after my 18th birthday, which was the IFBB Nationals up in Sydney at Cronulla, which I came third nationally for teenage division. And the first time I actually got to meet an IFBB pro, which is pretty cool. So,
Who did you meet?
Dennis Wolf back in his prime. So
Wow, that's pretty cool. So what year was this again? Sorry, I just missed
2008.
2008. Man, Dennis would have been huge back then.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So that was your first bodybuilding show. Was bodybuilding for you? Was this something that you chose to do consistently from that point on? Were you hooked?
I was hooked in a sense. It was actually one of my good mates that I trained with, Ari, that told me I should do a competition. And then from there, pretty much the way we used to train kind of stemmed across to every other aspect of like strength sports as well. So,
Right. So even speaking about that, because you went from doing a bodybuilding show to doing a powerlifting comp, right?
yeah, so
And that was all the same year?
That was all the same year. So it was September 2008 I did my first bodybuilding show, and then December 2008 I did my first powerlifting competition, which was down in Albury, Wodonga, and it was a deadlift challenge where I deadlifted a measly 210 kilos.
Well, I'll tell you what, 210 kilos at 18 years old is not bad. I mean, I'm 24 and I still can't do that, but I am happy to blame genetics. So, which of the two did you feel like you had more of a career in? Did you feel like this was something you wanted to pursue?
I didn't really feel I had a career in either of them, to be honest. Like, I had that young, naive mentality of wanting to be an IFBB pro because it looked cool in the pictures. They had all the money and girls. Little did I know there's not that much money in it. So
A very expensive sport, if we can call it a sport, of bodybuilding, right?
it is a sport.
It's a sport. Well, that's cool that you look at it that way, and I know I myself do with a competitive attitude. But because it was subjective, others might not look at it that way. Let's talk about the subjective nature of bodybuilding. What do you look for if you were a judge in a bodybuilder?
In a bodybuilder, as in someone competing on stage.
Correct.
It depends really. Like, there's so many different categories now. It's kind of hard to say what is good and what's not. People will say there's politics and all that kind of stuff in it. Pretty much just like overall body mass. Conditioning is one thing I find that a lot of people don't bring to a competition, as I'm sure you probably agree, because it sucks when you're diving, especially when you're lean. So pretty much conditioning is probably the number one thing.
Cool. Well, let's go
Which
on
I
that.
didn't have in 2008.
You didn't have that, man. Well, top 3 is not bad for a guy with no conditioning, so you must have had a bit of muscle to you, Jez.
I had absence, baby.
How many bodybuilding shows have you done?
Oh, probably say maybe 6 or 7, I think. Right
Okay.
off the top of my head, yeah.
So from 2008 till, when was your last one?
Last one was 2015.
Right, so that's, 4 years back now.
Yeah,
Do you have that urge to want to do it again?
I do, but then I also like food.
I mean, it's burning the candle at both ends. You're left with a whole heap of nothing.
That's it.
When it comes to bodybuilding, what were some things that you learned about yourself going through that? Because it is pretty taxing, right? Especially on the body and the mind, more so.
Massively, yeah. One thing I like about it, and I'm sure this is a very stereotypical answer, is like from playing sports as a kid, like football and all that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, with bodybuilding or powerlifting or whatever individual sport it is, at the end of the day, it really comes up to the person.
Yeah.
So there's no one else that can like fuck up the game for you or anything like that, which is good. But at the end of the day, literally, as much as you put in, as much as you get out. So. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, look, you started as a teenager and you did it into, what, you would have been your late 20s, your last show?
Yeah.
That's a long time to be doing it, and especially at the level I think the IFBB is, for a lot of people that talk about bodybuilding would say that's probably the pinnacle of, if you want to talk about the Olympia, you want to talk about the Arnold Classic.
The Olympia is the biggest show in the world, so you can't do that with NABA or INBA or IC or anything like that. So they do have their respective professional shows, I suppose you could say, but still doesn't.
Well, the Olympia is the Olympia, right?
Exactly, yeah.
All right, well, you stopped in 2002. What made you really think that maybe I don't have everything it takes to become, like you said, that dream of becoming an IFBB pro?
I never thought I didn't have what it takes, to be honest. It is a very time-consuming thing, as you know from competing yourself. But if you're going to look at it in a sense that you can't do it, then why go to work in the morning?
Yeah, wow, that's a really good...
and a lot of people out there will tell you can't do this, you can't do that, but at the end of the day, if you don't try, you don't know.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, look, I appreciate you saying that I would know, but I will openly say I don't think I have what it takes to do what you did, because I prepped at a similar time to you back in 2015, which was, as you said, your last show.
Yeah.
And man, you were a very difficult person to be around. So I was working in the supplement store attached to Elite Physique at the time.
I was hungry, man.
For everyone, there's one moment that I will never ever forget. Now, Jeremy and I used to work in the supplement store together. We were both casuals there. And we had this cupboard in the store. And we put certain things in there. We put our supplements in there. Jeremy would have his drawer. I'd have mine.
No steroids.
No steroids. Yeah. Lifetime naturals. And anyways, there was one day, Jeremy's partner Rachel had a shop downstairs called Cuisine. So they did beautiful meals. They prep your meals for you. I brought my meal up and I realized I didn't order any sauce. So Jeremy would have this cupboard of sauce, and I thought to myself, what any good human being would do, I'd ask him. So I politely went over, hey Jez, do you mind if I borrow some sauce? Do you remember how you reacted?
No, I don't actually.
Jeremy turned around to me, and mind you, I'm 60 kilos wet in a jumper. Jeremy's, looking like 100 kilos peeled and jacked, turns around and goes, if you ever fucking ask me to borrow any of my fucking sauce again, I will knock you the fuck out. Just fucking take it. Stop fucking asking stupid questions. It's safe to say I almost started crying over my good manners. Do you remember that now, Jeremy?
Yeah, I do, yeah. But I was telling you to take the sauce.
You were telling me to take the sauce. I thought I was doing the right thing. I was so scared. But it shows you what a nice guy Jeremy is, or how much bodybuilding diets play on your mind, because Jeremy sent me this really, really long essay that night of, hey man, I'm really sorry I yelled at you. I didn't mean that. You're such a good guy, and I really appreciate all the support. If you ever need any sauce, just please borrow it for yourself.
You asked him to borrow my sauce, man, not my missus.
Well, hopefully we never get to a point where we're sharing business, man. But on that, you could just see, like, that to me, that wasn't you. I know you like this. I think you're a really good guy with a great personality. Bodybuilding diets can be very taxing on that, on your mind. And let's talk about relationships. Did it affect your relationship a lot? Was that a reason to walk away as well?
I think when I started, it definitely affected relationships.
Because it's a very selfish lifestyle, right?
It's as selfish as you make it.
Elaborate on that.
But in saying that, it can be selfish in a sense that you have to eat at certain times. You can't sit down and have certain meals with your partner, family, friends, whatever it may be. Go to functions. But I reckon I believe it shouldn't be an excuse to not do certain things. There is a certain mentality and kind of, willpower that you can control yourself to not break your diet or your training regime and stuff. But at the same time, you don't need to be a Tupperware turd all the time.
I think everyone's probably been guilty of doing that once or twice in their life.
Many times, yeah.
Okay, well, look, let's talk about that powerlifting. So you did your first show 2008, the same year you did the bodybuilding. How consistently did you go with the powerlifting? Did you continue to do that while you were bodybuilding?
Yeah, I did, yeah. I did. I've probably done more powerlifting comps than I've done actually bodybuilding, to be honest. But that just kind of came from the way that Billy, being an elite powerlifter, trained people. So we always lifted heavy. Back then, in saying that, we didn't really know how, I'm going to say it as an excuse, we didn't know how to program things properly in terms of strengthening. So every week we just go in and max out and hope for the best.
How do your joints feel, Jez?
Yeah, next question.
But look, it's definitely paid off, right? Because, I mean, for anyone that doesn't know, and if you don't know, you should know, Jeremy actually holds the under 125's overall all-time squat record in Australia, correct?
Yes.
Right, and that is at what weight? How much did you lift?
Squatted 392.5 kilos at under 125 kilos body weight at the start of this year in March at the Arnold Classic, to be exact.
392.5 kilos.
Yep.
You know, my parents always told me to dream big, but I think that's, for me, one of those dreams that, better keep your day job. Because that's very impressive, dude.
It's getting up there, but still there's plenty of people out there that can do that better than compete.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, competing in itself, it takes a lot of courage to do that, doesn't it?
I think it does initially, but once you've done it a couple of times, it's kind of just like another training session, really. Probably the biggest thing I'd say in terms of that is to try and make your training as close to the competition as possible. Like in terms of using the same bar, the same weights, same bench press, squat rack, whatever it may be. That way that there's no variables when you get to comp.
Or you can limit your variables.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, let's talk about that moment. So, when you broke that record, where were you? And explain the process of the week leading up to that, even the days leading up to that day itself, and how you felt.
That was my coach and good friend Erica Libridge, who is actually ranked one of the best powerlifters in the entire world, was prepping me for that, but unfortunately he actually wasn't there for pretty much the whole prep. I think he was there for the initial start of it.
Because he lives
in Chicago.
Right.
Yeah. So he was travelling between Chicago and Australia. So I was basically just touching base with him every week, every couple of days, just to make sure that everything was going well and hitting numbers and all that kind of stuff. So between me, myself, and my training partner Jake, we pretty much just did everything together. From there, the whole prep went really well. That year was a big year full of anxiety and stress. Pretty much every weight that I hit that whole prep, I'd never touched in my life. So there was a lot of nervous wheeze before every squat session or bench press session. As you can, it's a lot of weight. You don't want to injure yourself or fuck something up or whatever. So that prep, everything went well. Coming on to the last session of the prep, I had to hit, I remember it was the opener for the squat actually, and everything went fine. I hit the opener, finished it off, took my knee wraps off and started to proceed on to my deadlift opener. And then when I bent down to put the weight on the bar, I felt this kind of pain in my quad. And I looked down and I had this big ass lump on the inside of my leg.
Damn.
And it was starting to go black straight away. And I didn't feel anything pop or anything on that weight, which is a good thing in my eyes. And from there, I kind of just backed off. I went in 2 days later, I think, and did my deadlift openers instead, just to give it a rest because it was actually painful to walk on. Went into the normal thing, went and saw a physio, Voltaren, and all that kind of jazz. It ended up bruising pretty badly, and I just went into damage control, taped it up, put bloody horse gel Voltaren on it and all sorts of crap. Did as much as I could, and then coming into the comp, it was kind of in the back of my head a little bit, but on all the warm-ups at the comp it felt fine, so I was pretty much sweet. It was actually really kind of surreal. I don't really remember much for the comp actually in saying that, but it was a very surreal moment, especially for the squats, obviously because you're holding something so heavy on your back. But I remember the people in the crowd. I didn't even notice anyone in the crowd until I saw the video afterwards. But two things that were really cool. When I went out for that last squat, that 392.5, Emad, one of the guys that runs Pro Raw, stopped me and said, I had my knees wrapped, I'd already sniffed my ammonia, everything was done. And he said, do you want to wait 2 minutes so Arnold Schwarzenegger can watch your squat right in front of you? And then I remember looking, I still got the video, I looked at the squat rack and looked back and I just shook my head and said, nah. Yeah. And he goes, he's not even going to wait for Arnold. There's no pressure at all. And then from there, did the squat, got it, everything was good. And then I even got to see the dude that I actually took the record from, which was Wayne Howlett, who's probably one of the top people that I actually looked up to when I was growing up, because he was an Aussie as well. And he was in the crowd, so I got to give him a hug and a handshake, which was cool.
Or sort of like the passing of the torch, right?
Kind of, yeah, about 2.5 kilos. So.
Man, well, I mean, if anyone that hasn't seen the video footage, it really is a very emotional thing because not only is that lift, I mean, we don't have to even explain that. 392.5 kilos is a lot of weight. But I guess for a lot of people in Canberra, especially, Jeremy, whenever the biggest athletes, you know, you hear a lot of success stories from other states, they're the guys that go overseas and, you know, really make it big. But for someone from our town to do something so special, you can see the emotion on your face when you realise, you know, you've got that weight up, your missus coming around, all your friends that are there to support you, just jumping around, screaming. You can see how much it meant to them as well.
Yeah.
You've influenced so many people to want to, you know, pursue these things within training, whether it be bodybuilding or now even powerlifting. I think that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, it is cool. It is cool. I really like hearing that kind of stuff too. So.
No, you're welcome, man. I mean, where could someone find the video of that?
On my Instagram, or on Eric's Instagram even. So I haven't got any YouTube channels or anything like that. But even the guy that runs Pro Raw, like PTC headquarters, they put up pretty much every top lift within the world. A lot of it's done throughout Australia as well. So
have you yourself actually got the video footage of that?
yeah.
One thing we could even do at the end of this video, guys, is maybe see if we could edit in Jeremy's squat into the end of this video. I'm just sort of looking at
I've got 2 videos which gives you a better thing. So I've got the actual me getting my knees wrapped, walking up. You can see Emad ask me everything, and then I've got another one that was done by Sebastian Oro, an Australian strength coach, who was filming right from front and center. So
cool.
that's what I use.
I'm looking at Cam right now, guys. He's just giving me this look.
I don't know, man. I could do it.
He can do it?
Wizardry, man.
So Cam's got to try and work his magic. We'll try and get that up. But if for whatever reason we can't, just because we are on a budget here, if you do follow Jeremy on his Instagram account, you can find that squat there. I remember myself watching that. I remember I actually put it up straight away on my Instagram account. I was at the Arnold's. I got to watch that. Then I sort of went back to my hotel room, got to see the video, and you could just see it was actually the highlight package of the Arnold Sports Festival. Well, that's how I saw it. It was actually in the highlights.
Oh, cool.
So because it obviously, well, man, it's an Australian record. It's pretty impressive. And I just remember seeing the emotion, and you sort of think that as someone that's known you for a few years, like, man, that's pretty cool to see. You know, because it hasn't been easy. One thing I think we haven't really touched on is you've had a lot of injuries.
Yeah, I've been very, I shouldn't say I had a lot of injuries, touch wood, but I've been very fortunate to, I guess, it kind of sounds retarded, but have the injuries that I've had. Because I know many other people have had much worse injuries than me. So I'm thankful that I've only had the ones I've had.
Well, I think you're being very modest when you talk about the injuries that you've had. Do you mind if we just talk about...
Yeah.
Because there's 2 specific ones, right?
Yes,
there's
a couple ones, yeah, there's a couple there.
What sort of severe injuries have you had?
So the first, I don't know if that's called injury, but, and it's what 99% of the population complains about every day, and it's back pain. I'm sure everyone's had it. The first point of this injury would have been roughly around 2007, I think it was, when I was doing roof climbing. It had nothing, funnily enough, had nothing to do with the gym. We had a ladder which was, it could go up 4 stories. So this ladder is a big ass ladder, it takes 2 people to put it up. It's scary shit trying to climb up it, and it takes 2 people to put it down. And when you're putting it down, you have to stand on the base of the feet, and then the other person walks it down so it doesn't flip over. When I was the one walking it down, so putting it to the floor, and then the other dude was holding the base, and he decided it'd be funny to run up the ladder while I was putting it down. So I've got the whole weight of the ladder above my head with some fat bastard running up the ladder on the other side. And then I remember arching back and my back popped, and then the next morning I woke up and I was literally like a decrepit old woman with a Zimmer frame walking around. Couldn't get in and out of cars, couldn't do anything. It was like that for about 2 weeks where I couldn't actually do anything. It was fucking terrible.
And man, 2000, so you would have been, what, 17?
17, yeah.
Chronic back pain at 17. Not a good start.
Yeah. But in saying that, the gym is probably what saved most of it. Yeah. Because like a lot of the time, you go to a doctor, physio, or anything like that, they'll just tell you what they told me. Just rest, take painkillers, and it'll get better. It doesn't fucking get better. Trust me.
Well, I mean, no one's in your body and no one can actually tell you how you feel, right?
Exactly.
Okay, well, look, that's back pain. That's one that I didn't know about, and I'm sure it's probably because you don't like to talk about back pain.
I don't mind talking about back pain. It's just frustrating in the sense that, not to sound like I know everything, but I can fix a lot of people, but everyone's too fucking lazy to come to me and actually do the stuff I tell them to do. And it speaks for itself, being able to squat 392.5 kilos and not have a spine.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Right, well, I mean, look, I like to think I've got a bit of a brain. I can see that you're a pretty big guy, pretty jacked dude, pretty strong, good at almost everything he's tried. I mean, even for myself this year, I'm like, I think this is the guy I'm going to go to try and get a little bit bigger. So, I mean, I can tell you guys from first-hand experience, Jeremy is fantastic at what he does. But if we were just to quickly touch back on those, let's talk about your ankle.
Yeah. So it was 2014. Very start of the year. I think it was January 10th, 2014. It was like any other day. It was a Friday, I remember, because we were just about to train hamstrings. I was there before anyone else, as usual. None of my friends are punctual. I was warming up, and one of my friends was doing a little CrossFit ward, whatever they call it, in the group fitness room at Elite at the time. And she was doing handstands, and I was like, oh, shit. I'm an egotistical retard. I'll have a go at trying to do a handstand. I did a few handstands, and then I decided to do a walking handstand. And then on the second try of a walking handstand, picked up a bit too much momentum and tried to be a Chinese gymnast and flip over and land on my feet. And I did land on my feet, but one of my feet was actually turned to the side a little bit. My foot ended up facing the opposite way to my leg. I didn't actually know what happened. I just heard a big snap and then looked down and my foot was facing the wrong way. So that was, and the funny part about that was when Josh Manado was guiding me. I remember calling him in the hospital and I said, I'm hoping it's just a dissertation, man. I think I'll be able to do cardio tomorrow.
There's no quitting you. But I mean, look, I remember that, man. It was very, very rough time for you. How long did that set you back?
Well, to be honest, I was a bit shook from it. So I didn't work for a bit. I ended up changing gyms to train, just because I didn't want to see people and have to talk about the issue and how it's feeling and the usual rigmarole with that. I know people care and stuff, but I just didn't want to deal with it. So I actually changed gyms and I started training probably, maybe I want to say 2-3 weeks after the surgery. So I actually dislocated my ankle and broke my tibia, and I had to get a metal plate put in. My ankle was screwed in just one angle for 3 months, which was kind of shitty, but I did everything I could to continue training and stuff like that. And any person, all the doctors told me I was stupid for trying to train, but that's the only way I could basically stay sane without sitting at home and just, being bored out of my brain. And I went back to work as soon as I could as well. But in terms of setting me back, I don't think I squatted anything until probably November that year. And I remember the day because I was getting constant rehab, and that was probably the worst part. It was freaking painful getting everything, needles stuck in it, taped up, force manipulation, all that kind of stuff, to get as much range of motion as I could get back into the ankle. And I remember the day I first squatted the barbell, and that was a good day.
Wow, I mean, well, it's crazy looking back at it because 3.5 years later, you've got the all-time squat record.
Yeah.
And
it's because I'm
reinforced steel is kind of like Superman, guys, but I think one thing for a lot of our listeners, injuries do set a lot of people back, especially mentally be the biggest thing. You have that fear of not being able to do something the way you once did. Did you ever have that fear of not being able to get back into training the way you were?
I wouldn't say it was a fear, it was more of a frustration than anything. Because it was, you see so many people injure themselves and they can't get back to where they were or whatever. That's why I say I'm grateful, but it was something, as bad as it sounds, it was something so minute compared to, like, I've known other guys that, like, say, top powerlifters that I've competed with, that have gone to do a warm-up squat and they've torn both their quads off the bone and had to have, like, surgery. And it's not nice stuff to see, but they've come back. And that same person I was talking about actually came back and has the biggest squat in Australia right now. So
wow.
Yeah.
And how much is that squat?
460 kilos. Yeah. So just over 1,000 pounds for any.
How amazing was that?
Yeah.
And to go from injury like that to do.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, he was a big Kiwi guy, Odell Manuel, and I remember he was saying to me, he goes, I was just out there, bro, and I was just hoping, please don't pop on me, please don't pop.
That's unreal. Well, I mean, look, you've got to be a pretty strong man to do that, both mentally and physically. But that's actually the next thing I want to talk about, Jeremy, because you actually hold a pretty cool title, which is you were the former Canberra Strongest Man.
I don't know about cool titles, Canberra, man.
Hey, man, how are you going to disrespect my audience like that? Apologise.
No, it is good.
When did you start getting to strongman comps?
I did my first strongman comp, when was that? That would have been probably 2010, 2011 I think it was. That was in Wollongong, up at a place called Rock Solid Fitness, I think it was called. That same guy still runs competitions up there, and he also manufactures gym equipment and strongman equipment as well.
That's pretty cool.
Which was cool, yeah. So they had some pretty cool events up there that you wouldn't normally see at, I guess it was just a random show.
Like what?
Well, stones. Not many people do Atlas stones that I've seen. It's been becoming a bit more around nowadays because it's getting so big, the strongman sport or strength sport in general. But one of the ones that I remember, it was the Conan's walk. Have you seen Conan the Barbarian?
The movie?
Yep.
Yes.
Do you remember one of the first scenes where he's a child and he's pushing that thing around and he grows older and there's just like a hole in the floor?
Yeah.
So that's called the Conan's walk, and except it's a bit that you don't push it around, you literally get under it and you got to pick up the weight and walk around in a circle without putting it down as many times as you can.
I see a lot of things going wrong with that, but that's definitely why I'm not a strongman. So you say you were doing that 2010, 2011, so you were still bodybuilding and powerlifting either side of that, is that correct?
Pretty much, yeah. They kind of, like I said, they pretty much go hand in hand. Like most people kind of say, oh, like they want to do a powerlifting comp, and then they'll get to the end of it and they'll go, oh, okay, now I want to do a bodybuilding, I want to do hypertrophy. It's like, dude, you're lifting weights. It's all the same shit.
Well, let's talk about that last bit. So, how long did you do the strongman comps for?
I remember doing that one in 2010, 2011, and I did one more, I think, the year after, and then I think I did another two in Canberra, which was just like a state comp, I guess you could call it, and then that actually qualified me to do Canberra Strongest Man, which was back in 2014, did you say? 16.
I did my research.
2016, which was cool. That was a 2-day event, which was that was terrible, and it was probably close to the minuses in terms of temperatures.
Was it raining?
Yeah, it was raining.
That's right, it was raining, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Damn. Just so everyone, this event takes place outside as well, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
They've actually put it inside when it started properly raining. I guess speaking, they don't classify as raining. So they put the one event that probably wouldn't be affected by rain, the log press, inside, whereas you had to carry shit and pull a truck around. Yeah, that's all okay.
And I remember there's this really cool photo, I think it's still up on Jeremy's Instagram, of him actually cutting himself. Your face was bleeding during one of the events.
Yeah, so that was the Atlas stone. We had 4 stones, I think it was. I think there was 80, 120, 140, 160, and a 180 kilo stone. And on the 160 kilo stone, I kind of stumbled forward, but having all the, if anyone doesn't know what it is, tacky is like, how to describe it? It's like glue basically, and you stick it all in your arm so you can grip the stone. And my arm was caught over the top of the stone, and it pulled me forward, and we had to lift it over a height, so there was a bar there, and it actually smashed my face into the bar and split just under my eye. Yeah.
Did you still hold onto the stone?
I dropped it, and then I picked it up the road and started the thing. Yeah.
Maybe that's why you can't be strongest man, because I would have tapped out if something hit me in the face. I started bleeding. You know what, sir? I'm out of here. But that's a really cool title to have. So you've done really well with the bodybuilding. You become Canberra's Strongest Man. You hold the all-time Australian squat record. Man,
For the under 125s.
Under one.
Just to not disrespect the big boys.
Understood. Yeah, sorry, because I forget that under 125 kilos doesn't classify as big. That gives you a lot of credibility in what you do, Jeremy. You know, it clearly shows that you are someone that trains. You are someone that at least progresses, consistently. And that's sort of what you look for in your training, isn't it? You always want to continuously progress. I know that's what I look for in my training. The clients that I have, that's what we try and do.
Yeah.
Let's talk about you being a PT in today's society, because a lot's changed, hasn't it, since you first started becoming a PT. Now there's this whole social media world where... So, for anyone that doesn't have the video content, I think Jeremy's face basically describes sort of how we both feel about the issue. But look, Jeremy has a lot more experience than I have. He's been around a lot longer than I have. What are some of the changes you've noticed in the industry?
People stroking their own egos.
Cool. Could you... Let's elaborate on that a little bit, Jess.
Don't get me wrong, social media is an awesome thing. But at the same time, I think people, and I'm one that does it as well, and I kind of pull myself up on every now and again, is constantly sitting down with the head down, like the Facebook symbol says, always looking at stuff, and people being so misconstrued by how they should look or what they should do and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, like, and I said, I've been there too, but at the end of the day, there's things called filters, and when you actually meet most of the people in your life, I guarantee you won't fucking recognise it. That seems to be the biggest problem with social media. It's a lot of it is it's literally fake until you make it, like we've said at the start.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, like, I don't have a huge issue with it, because look, my business is a lot based off social media. I try not to put my...
You were the, not to say this way, but you were the generation, I guess, kind of grew up with it from a younger age.
Right.
Yeah? Whereas when I was, let's say, I only got Facebook, I think it was 2008. That's when I first had Facebook. And I had no fucking idea what I was doing. I remember just putting up a random thing, and I look back now and there's like, no one's liking it, no one's watching it, no one's doing anything. I'm just putting up shit on the internet for no reason. It's like, I didn't understand why I was doing it then, I don't understand why I was doing it now. But, so I'm, in terms of saying like tech savvy, like you'd be a lot more tech savvy in terms of social media and stuff like that. And it's good because then I have someone like yourself to teach me to do stuff as well.
Yeah, right. Well, look, I mean, what you were saying then, it's, you almost get it to get it, right?
Yeah.
Everyone else around you has it, so you think, oh, fuck, I don't want to be left out of this shit. You know? Let me get the new iPhone. You know, let me get the...
person if you don't have it. So.
Exactly. Did it even happen if it's not... If you didn't get a video, did it even happen? On that, though, you almost feel like the quality itself, because there are some people that are really good at social media, you know, they know how to market themselves, but they may not even have the experience nor the...
But they're actually the ones doing it. That's the thing that I find funny. You get these people who are probably not at the... I'm not taking anything away from you, like at the level you're at, but people who are higher up, they'll actually have a paid person to do all the social media for it, which I guarantee when you write to someone like The Rock or something like that, you're not getting a response from The Rock.
It's pretty devastating for everyone that gets celebrity response, right?
Exactly.
Well, let's bring that down. Let's bring that to a local level, because, like I said, for me, I look at you and I go, cool, this guy seems to have all the tools to at least not just teach me, but help me progress to get to where I want to progress. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of PTs that are coming into the industry now at a very young age, but they almost go across it as they have everything. They know everything.
This is the best analogy I've ever heard, and this was from Eric Lillibridge's dad, Ernie Lillibridge Sr., and it was at a seminar I did up in Sydney with them before actually being coached by them and meeting them properly. And this is coming from like the best powerlifting family in the freaking world, standing there saying they don't know everything. So when you've got a 17-year-old kid who's got his fucking PT license out of the back of the Kellogg's box, saying he knows everything and knows how to do all this and that, you've got the best person in the world saying that they don't know everything, and the way he described it is, you start off with a cube, right? And every time you learn something, you chop a corner off the cube. So once you've chopped all the corners off, you've got like a weird like hexagon kind of shape or octagon kind of shape. And you keep chopping corners off till you get a sphere. And so every time you chop a corner off, that's learning something. And once you get the sphere, you polish it. And so you never stop learning. So every time you do something, you're always getting more and more and more and more. And so knowledge is always power over everything.
Wow, that's a really cool analogy. Wow, that's really, really cool. It's cool that you said it. It's come from someone
that's world class.
Yeah. I mean, I know Billy Giampaolo said something to me a few years back when I was talking to him about training, and he said, Viv, I don't claim to know everything. The reality is I don't know everything. I just know the basics, and I know the basics well.
That's it.
And sometimes the basics are all you need, just training properly.
Yeah.
Learn how to train properly. I know...
The basics is all you need, really. You see on social media that people will get a lot of responses and followers from putting up some backwards, upside down movement that's supposed to be the next best thing to get your intercostals working or something. It's not normal. But the thing is that the people out there that don't, I shouldn't say they don't, but it seems that they don't want to put in the hard work to do the basics, the bread and butter as I call it, to get to where they need to be. You can do one, I guarantee you can do one exercise that is going to benefit you more than doing 15 of the other ones that you're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the standards of PTs now, I mean, the gym industry, the fitness industry itself, it's saturated, right? Because it's such a booming industry, and that's a good thing. Health and fitness is totally a good thing.
Yeah.
A lot of people want to start their careers in that now. Would you have any advice for people that do want to become personal trainers?
Learn. Do something before you do it. Like in saying that, go back to the very start of everything we started to talk about. I went from being in school, hating school, drinking lots, doing drugs, all that kind of stuff, to pretty much just being like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? I'm not doing anything at school, I'm not going to go to uni, I'm not going to do all that shit. Went and got a job, started doing something I love because I started training. I had competed in at least 4 or 5 competitions before I even started working as a PT. And not to say that competition is the end all be all, but I guarantee you'll learn a lot more from doing competitions, not only about yourself, but of how things work, than reading a book about it. Again, another analogy I would say, I'd rather have a surgeon that's done 1,000 successful surgeries than a dude that's read every single book on surgeries and never touched anybody.
Yeah, well, it's practical works, right? You
Exactly.
know, anyone can have theory. And it's sort of like looking at degrees. You know, there's a lot of people, you know, I guess myself included, we spend all this time at uni acquiring this knowledge, but then you get out of it, you haven't got the ability to put that into a practical, you know,
experience. That's the end of the day.
What do they say? You know, need experience for job, but need, you know,
Yeah, need a qualification also.
yeah,
It's like, how do I get that?
got to get job for experience. So it's definitely a tough one, but you are someone who has nailed that, and I think your clients speak for themselves. The results that they're getting is fantastic, and you have a diverse group of clients, don't you, Jeremy?
I do, very much. I train, the youngest that I've got is 13. And the oldest that I have trained is 71.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's very diverse. And
Yeah. I even train special needs people. I've trained people with severe injuries. And even one that comes to Bell was a woman who unfortunately was caught in a bushfire back in 2003 in Canberra. And she couldn't hardly do anything. She was burnt head to toe. Lost mobility of her arms, had no hands, all this kind of stuff. And she actually came to me to be trained because she was going to the Equestrian Paralympics to compete. And yeah, this is like, that's one of the things that is kind of like when you whinge of the sore back, and I do it all the time, or I saw this or saw that, and then you see people like that actually want to train and want to utilise everything they've got left. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I mean, look, I think it's fair sometimes to, you know, you can whinge about an injury or something like that because it hurts. But don't quit. You know, just fucking get your shit together, progress forward, just keep moving. I think I think a lot of people try and throw themselves a pity party, and like you said, you've had someone like that who
But at
didn't.
the end of the day, no one gives a fuck about your injuries.
Totally.
As bad as that sounds. People say, oh, I don't care about you. But if you were coming from being a top person and you injured yourself and then you disappeared off social media, I guarantee you people wouldn't notice.
Well, how many times does that happen with athletes, man? You guys,
Massively.
athletes that are the biggest guys in their industry, something bad happens. Whether it's a forced retirement from an injury or life gets in the way, there's someone to replace them.
Massively, yeah.
You're forgotten, and you might have so much influence over someone, but you'll get forgotten.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see that these people here, they do it for themselves, like you said. You know, they've had these injuries, but they want to keep doing it for themselves. Jeremy, if someone wanted to train with you, how would they get in contact with you?
Either via my Instagram, is probably the easiest. I don't really use Facebook too much. Or on my website, jwpersonaltraining.net. It's got all my details. You can send me a message through the website, or you can contact me on my Instagram. I think my Instagram has my phone number on it. I I think my Facebook does too, so you can send me a text message, obviously just say who you are, and just send me a blank text message. I get that a lot, you'd be surprised.
Yeah, right. I mean, what's the weirdest message you've received?
The weirdest one was probably what I was talking to you about before, with this random dude emailing me with some, nothing against Asian people, but some Chinese or Japanese symbols on it. So
Some form of change.
Asking about personal training, and the funny thing is, obviously, in the sport of bodybuilding, powerlifting, strongman, all that kind of stuff, there are drugs used, whether it be from steroids to like painkillers, antidepressants, all that kind of stuff. Some legal, some illegal. And one of the first things he says was he wants a trainer who is a natural bodybuilder and powerlifter because he doesn't want them to get him to take drugs. I mean, like I said, there are PEDs or steroids used in the sport. I don't have a problem with people do them or don't. I just suggest do your knowledge before you start taking them. But in saying that, what kind of fucking trainer out there is going to force someone to take steroids as a first session? It's like, yep, here you go. So here's your starter pack here. There's a few vials, a few syringes. There you go. You don't need to train, just take that. It's all good.
Oh man, there's a lot of money to be made, right? That's crazy. But you know what? Let's hope we get a whole more clients and a whole more weird questions. I'd love to talk about them again. So dude, thank you so much for coming on. I think our audience has really got to get a really cool understanding of what really got you into this, all the things that you've done. And man, before we sign off, 2 new bubs on the way. First bubs.
Yes, 2 new boys.
2 new boys, twins.
Yeah. And it's funny enough because I've got the same comp from last year coming up in March and then due the exact same time. So it's going to be a fun time for the next few months.
Which will you pick?
It all depends. They'll be here before the comp. They will be here before the comp because it's twins. It just depends on how much sleep I get between them coming and the competition. So.
Well, man, I'm sure you're going to make a great dad. You've excelled in everything you've done in life so far, Jeremy. Thank you so much for coming on, dude.
Thanks.
No worries at all. A big thank you again to Thorpe Films. Thorpe, man, let's get this one right. I know we can.
I'm trying my hardest.
No, Cameron Thorpe is absolutely amazing at what he does. All your video and now audio content, you can get that from Thorpe Films on Instagram. Again, thank you to the amazing artwork by Jess Gray. Jess, we really, really love the artwork you've done for us. And guys, again, Jeremy, jwpersonaltraining.net to sign up to your needs from Jeremy. Jeremy, thanks for coming in. Thorpe, thanks for that, and we'll see you guys soon.